I think I've been streaming exclusively on YouTube for about 4 or 5 months now. In the first couple of times I did have to set up my stream, I'll admit it was a bit daunting. It was a little bit confusing just because of the way that you have to set up your stream in Twitch. Um, it does make sense from a YouTube perspective if you do upload, a bit more long form content on YouTube. But if you're like me and you didn't make that move and you're kind of wondering how that all works within YouTube Studio backend, never fear, Drew is here. But yeah, I'll quickly jump into the YouTube Studio backend and show you essentially how to set up a YouTube live stream for those of you that out there that need that little bit of help or are thinking of jumping ship from Twitch or anything of the sorts. So if that does sound, nice, cool, and nifty, give it a thumbs up. You could always give it a comment. You could just say, yes, Queen Slay in the comments if this is something you're thinking of doing. But anyway, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go, not to mix it up like we usually do, we're going to go to YouTube Studio. So if you haven't already created a YouTube account, I feel like that should be like the bare bone basic step one that I really don't have to say, but I'm saying it anyway. Set up a YouTube account. And then from there, what we're going to do is you can either go from create up here, but I usually just go from this button here where it says go live with the little, broadcast buttons. One of the key differences within YouTube and Twitch is that on Twitch, you kind of just start streaming. Well, there's that whole calendar and schedule stuff, but usually, at least what I used to do is just click start stream and then you just go and you kind of let people know in your Discord and other sorts that your stream is either teeing up or hey, scheduling in that regard. The way that I use YouTube for live streaming is I always schedule a stream. I believe this is also a technical requirement because how it's got to work with Mixed Up with the chatbot and everything like that. Because Mixed Up have actually just publicly released their YouTube live streaming integration, which is absolutely brilliant because Mixed Up is great. So if you want to learn more about that, I'll link that up in the cards over there and in the description in terms of how to set that all up. But in terms of just actively going live with YouTube Studio, you can manage, and then we're just going to hit schedule stream and go through all the settings. Now, as you can see, I've already created a stream, so it's really easy. You can just go reuse settings, so you can just kind of reuse all that kind of stuff. It's really useful. If you're like me, for example, and you're playing through Zelda, I could just reuse all the old settings from my other streams. Or, if I play Fall Guys again, I can just easily reuse that stream. But for this, let's just create new just to show you essentially the whole process. And again, most of these details are extremely familiar if you create YouTube videos, but for those that don't, essentially your title, surprise, surprise, it's a title. You can also mention a channel, which is really nifty. Next is the description. So for me, I just have a standard boilerplate that just gets populated in. So for example, it's got a subscriber link, it's got a join the Discord link, it's got all my social links, it's got a Mix It Up shout out, it's got the acknowledgement of traditional owners, and then I've also got a little tag section at the bottom. So I always tend to put a max of 3 hashtags on my stream. That's the same logic I follow within my YouTube videos as well, just to create that consistency. And again, since I reuse my settings, for example, with my Zelda Tears of the Kingdom stuff, it's always, I believe, hashtag TOTK, Tears of the Kingdom. It's usually hashtag ep with the number of what episode I'm up to. And then the third one is usually like if I'm on the water temple or if I'm on the shrines. It depends on what kind of happening during that stream that I put in that last hashtag. Next is how do you want to go live? So it's either streaming software, webcam, or mobile. If you're moving from Twitch, chances are using streaming software. Next is the categories. Again, people, blogs, gaming, how-to style, music, whatever you're choosing. If you are choosing gaming, however, you can choose a game title. So for example, if we were playing Zelda, does that whole Google lookup, however it fetches this. So you can choose a game title on there, which is useful from a discoverability perspective, that if someone's searching for a game, you'll essentially show up within the live streams of that game. The next one is thumbnail, which I think this is one of the biggest technical differences between Twitch and YouTube. And this is where, again, it makes more sense from a YouTube perspective. YouTube, you need a thumbnail. Now, I've seen some people like Harris Harrella, he essentially just has a template thumbnail that he does. At least for me, I kind of like it as a little design exercise that I always get to create a new thumbnail. It makes it a bit more, of a raw design exercise just to kind of get something really weird up and going. I don't really have to invest too much time on it, and I don't want to invest too much time on it. So that's a big difference in terms of that Twitch YouTube difference. So essentially, you need to upload a thumbnail. You can add it to a playlist. So for me, I have where is it? A Zelda Tears of the Kingdom playlist. So again, all that kind of stuff will go in there. Also have a Fall Guys playlist. It just depends on how you kind of want to manage your playlists, if at all. Within your channel, you will have a dedicated live tab in which it will contain all your live streams anyway. So it's not 100% necessary. It just depends on how you want to manage your content. Next is the audience. Essentially, is the video made for kids or not? Probably should be a no for most cases, but if it's yes, I'll let you figure that bit out. You should know if it's yes or not. Paid promotion, does the stream contain paid promotion? This again, manage it depending on whether you are or not. Next is tags. Now, it's really useful how they've added this text actually. Tags can be useful if content in your stream is commonly misspelled. Otherwise, tags play a minimal role in helping viewers find your stream. So look, I just have these three by default, but if you wanted to, for example, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, you could always just put Zelda or TOTK or Zelda Kingdom, or I don't know, whatever other combinations you want to put in there if that's how people search. But again, it doesn't really play too much of a role, so I wouldn't really make a list of 50 million combinations of how people can search. Next is language, essentially just whatever language you stream in. The CC certification, this I'd most likely recommend leaving to none unless, again, you know all of this stuff. The location, again, you can just put in location. So for example, we're in Melbourne. If I was doing like an in-real live stream, I'd probably just do Melbourne. And then comments and ratings, choose if you want to show comments. So look, I just do hold potentially inappropriate comments from review, just so there's some basic moderation that's set up in there. And there's all that information in there in terms of, how that's all set up. Next is customization, which it's not going to let me go through because I haven't done, oh, there we go. Customization, because I just didn't put that title in. So again, tailor your stream to your needs. So do you want a live chat? Do you want the live chat replay? So essentially the live chat replay is that if someone goes back to watch your live chat, like as a VOD version, does the chat show up? Do you want, subscriber only? Do you want live commentary by approved users, essentially who can participate? Live reactions, and depending as well if you want a message delay. I'm assuming for the most part, you probably don't want a message delay, but it's there if you want it. Next is the visibility, which is, do you want it unlisted? Do you want it private? Or do you just want it public to everyone? Probably gonna want it public. Unlisted, I would definitely recommend doing if you're doing like a sub only perk, or like, let's say, a Patreon stream, you just want to send a link directly to people, or like, a poster within your Patreon or something like that. And the last thing is the schedule of when you want it to go live. While this is technically a schedule, you can just set up, your go live time. So currently it's, as the time of recording this, it's 6:18 p.m. So if I really wanted to, I could just schedule it to go live at 6:19, click done, and then it would be ready to go live. You can do that. I'll probably, well, my standard practice is I usually just schedule it like half hour, an hour in before, and then let people know on my Discord earlier that something's coming up today. Again, just depends on how my day's going and everything like that, but you can schedule it legitimately for a couple of minutes before. Now, I'm not going to create this stream, but what I am going to do is within stream up here, this will load in my last stream. Here we go. And then not even my last stream, just created a weird random stream. But this is essentially the interface from the YouTube Studio backend, like the standard YouTube Studio backend. You've got your little stream preview over here. You've got all your settings over here, so you can click edit and you can change your stream name, you can change your description, you can change all that kind of stuff in which you created when you first scheduled your stream. You then have a couple of stream settings down here, which potentially may lock when you start streaming. So for example, the latency, you can't change the latency once you start streaming. You can't change your closed caption settings whenever you start streaming. So for example, stream latency is a delay, between everything. And as it says here, normal has high quality video. It's best if you don't want to interact with your audience. Low is if you want to interact in near real time, and ultra low is high interaction and engagement. For me, I just put everything as low. There's like an ever so slight delay, but it's not too much of a problem. Pretty sure it's in ultra low latency if I select it that you can't put in closed captions and everything like that. There you go, captions and ultra low latency can't be used at the same time. So I do low, and then I get my captions fed through my OBS. You can unlist the live replay once the stream ends if you want to. And then lastly, over on the right here, as it says right at the top chat, this is just your chat. So you can either do top chat where some messages such as potential spam may not be visible, or you can just do absolutely everything. Blatant transparency, I don't really get that many people chatting, at least in my stream, so I haven't really seen it where top chat filters out stuff, but I'm sure it can definitely happen. So I wouldn't really stress about it too much if you're a bit more of the smaller side, that some things may be filtered out, at least within this view. There's 3 more buttons if you want to quickly go over. First one up the top here is creating a highlight. So once you're live, you can click that or create a stream highlight. You can also create a marker, which then within your YouTube Studio backend, you can go through your video and essentially, take out clips within your VOD. And the last one is just share, which will just give you a nice little sharing URL. But look, apart from that, streaming on YouTube is basically, once you hit go live, the same as Twitch, especially if you use a chatbot like MixItUp. That is a very cohesive experience across the board. You won't really experience too much of a difference. One thing I actually would recommend in terms of from an OBS perspective is just making sure you directly log into your YouTube within your OBS. I'm not sure if there's a way to not do it that way, but for at least me personally, I've only ever done it that way. And then that way there'll be 2 buttons. There'll be start stream and also manage broadcast. Whenever you manage broadcast from there, you can actually select your scheduled stream which you created within your YouTube Studio. You can click it and then it'll just pull through all the settings it needs to pull through. You can click start streaming and then everything will just start working cohesively. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to try and schedule it, I know I said before that you can do it for like a minute out. I'd probably recommend doing it 5 minutes just to make sure that you can kind of get everything connected the way you want it and need it to be connected. But yeah, that's pretty much everything for me. Look, I actually really prefer YouTube streaming over Twitch streaming, especially now that I've been on there for at least a couple months. In retrospect, I found Twitch streaming really gambly with all the channel points and the bits, and there was just one too many different kind of factors. I think because also branded in that certain way, it felt a bit misleading. Whereas at least with YouTube, I know there's super thanks and there's still those kind of monetization options there, but it feels a bit more direct in terms of how much you're actually giving from, at least from a viewer to a streamer. It's a bit more direct and a bit more transparent. Whereas bits and stuff like that, you could be like, oh, I'm giving you 1,000 bits, and then the streamer only gets not even $2. But at least from setting up a stream, that's how you get all that sorted. But as always, if you do have any questions, leave that down there, or just tell me how you're feeling today. Hopefully it's a bit positive. But yeah, that's pretty much everything from me. It's been me, Drew, your friendly MixItUp neighborhood ambassador. Stay safe, stay healthy, treat people with kindness. I'll see you next time. I don't know why we're doing all these finger actions, but sure.